The Kansas City Chiefs, they escaped in the Black Friday game against the Raiders. They are 11-1, in case need anyone forget, because it feels like they do. They are the 1 seed in the AFC. And all I keep hearing and all I keep seeing on X is the Chiefs, they're the 1 seed. They're in trouble, but they're flawed, man. But that's what everybody says. They're like, okay, yeah, we know Kansas City's the 1 seed, but they've got a lot of problems. They're so flawed. Are we really going to start freaking out and worrying about the Chiefs? I'm not saying they don't have issues. We haven't talked about this. Where do you stand on this? Because all I see is everyone saying, okay, yeah, they're the 1 seed, but God, they're so bad. They're 11-1.
To peel back the curtain just a little bit, you had messaged me the other day that you said you were so tired of people just saying how lucky the Chiefs are. I believe that was kind of close to your statement. And I do feel that they're lucky, okay? But it's not in the same way I think most people, like the people that you're talking about, how they view them as lucky. I think it's different. And let me explain. What you guys have gone through to be 11-1 is not luck. It's Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Spags. That's what that is. That's just making the best out of a big pile of crap. And that's what's happened. And now that crap has gotten polished up, and it's not so crap anymore. It's actually really good football players. But everybody, and I've said this forever, the thing that makes Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady so great is they elevate everybody around them. It doesn't matter where you came from, what your ranking was coming out of college. It doesn't matter. You're going to be better when you play with these guys. And they're not like Aaron Rodgers where they put you in a doghouse if you mess up. You know what happens when you mess up with Andy Reid? You get the ball the very next snap. I've noticed that with Andy Reid.
Yeah.
He builds confidence in his players. If you fumble, the next drive out, it's a run to the same guy who just fumbled. Why? Because Andy Reid trusts you, and he knows that mistakes happen, and he's willing to go through those mistakes. Where I think that you guys are lucky is all the other teams that screw up against you guys that could have won. Okay? Bills managed to not screw up so much. And we've done it before. We'll probably do it again in the playoffs because that's just notoriously what happens. But the guys the teams that face y'all and literally fumble their chance away, hence the Raiders, like that is where you guys are lucky because you guys win games that you really aren't supposed to. And I don't say that on the Kansas City side. It's just like the Raiders had y'all's number. And it was the fumble that really changed everything. You could even see it on the sideline. Like, even Patrick Mahomes kind of knew, oh, crap. Like, they have our number. O'Connell's going down here, and they're going to kick the field goal and win. And what happens? He fumbles the snap. That's where the luck comes in. It is not the luck of, like, you guys are just, oh, my gosh, you are so lucky, you are so good. No, that's talent. Luck is on the side of the ball where you guys shouldn't have won.
So first off, I would be the first one to admit there were problems with the Chiefs. When they traded Tyreek Hill, I was literally the first person that was like, guys, I think they're going to be better next year because it's going to make Mahomes play another way. The next year, I was worried. I was more than worried. I didn't think they'd win the Super Bowl last year. I was concerned all year. I was waving red flags and saying they've got issues. This year, a little bit different. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything. To your point, what you said, it's not offensive. It's 100% fact. What you just said is absolutely fact. Here's where I would counter. I'm not even saying I think this, but how much of that is the fact that it is the Chiefs and they've built that equity and that fear into teams? Because that's just the thing. It's kind of like in college when teams would play Saban. Like they would make mistakes. They'd get in their own head. I'm not saying that's what in a microcosm caused the Aiden O'Connell fumble. Just in general, you're like, you have to push hard. It's the Chiefs. We can't let up. It's like people are still playing them like they're the 2017 Chiefs, and they're not. It's like they all know, oh, it's Patrick Mahomes, it's the Wolf. I feel like that kind of gets in their head and almost causes more mistakes.
Yeah, that happens to some degree. For the Raiders, though, it was a complete, happenstance. The dude hiked the ball when O'Connell wasn't ready for it. It was just a miscommunication, however it laid out. It's the same thing that happened to the Panthers in overtime against the Bucs today. It's Hubbard fumbling the ball when the last thing he could have wanted to do was fumble the football. Like, that's what put your game away. And same thing happened with the Raiders. Like, the only thing we can't do is botch a snap, and we could probably win this football game. The Raiders always play y'all close. Divisional opponents.
Right.
So, I mean, it happens. But this game, I just felt like even on the defensive side of the ball, Spags just he couldn't get it together for the most part. And I'm not saying that he failed the Kansas City Chiefs, but they just answered. Like the Raiders, one of the worst rushing teams in the league. They were running the ball over Kansas City. That's for sure.
No, I agree.
And I can't even tell you their running back's name. Forgot his name.
Yeah, I'm not going to be on here saying the performance by the Chiefs against the Raiders were good. I'm not going to say any of their performances the past couple of weeks are good. They kind of dominated the Panthers, but they let them come back at the end. Before that, they got beat by the Bills. They beat the Broncos on the last second field goal, beat the Bucs in overtime. Here's where I start to get aggravated. When people say it as if, oh yeah, we know they're the 1 seed, we know they're 11-1, but they've got so many flaws, it's going to be exposed as soon as they get into the playoffs.
Oh yeah, no, forget that.
I'm not saying they won't get beaten in the first playoff game. With the flaws they have, they very well could be. Wouldn't shock me. But they've had a ton of injuries this year. The fact that they are at 11-1, I'm not making an excuse of injury. I'm just saying the fact that they're at 11-1 with the issues they've had, to me, is impressive. I don't care how you win the games. They're NFL teams. And if I was any other team in the league, I would just look at it as, that Patrick Mahomes finds another gear in the postseason. He has that mentality where he knows this means more. I got to make it happen on this play. That's what he always does. So I just would be cautious if I was the rest of the league acting like they're going to be one and done in the playoffs. They could be, but they could go on a deep playoff run again.
It's the worst thing you could do is put Kansas City in that corner because they will swing harder than they ever have, from just the complete disrespect that they get. They've done it before. So, yeah, they need to temper their expectations of what Kansas City is capable of. I don't even think you've seen the best Kansas City that's available right now.
I think you're seeing some of the worst. But we saw last year they lost on Christmas to the Raiders, looked awful. And then here we go. So I think people were thinking, well, they can't do that again. I think they could, especially if they hold on to the 1 seed and these teams have to go to Arrowhead in January.
Yeah, well, I think you also look at teams like Detroit and you see how they're just slamming teams like 52-6. That's not normal in the NFL.
It's not.
So let's not get used to that. There's a lot of teams that don't score a lot of points here in football games. And Kansas City is not one of those teams that rack up points in football games. They always play their opponents close. If you ever have a betting line, always bet that Kansas City will not cover that spread because they almost never do. And but Kansas City's been that way for years. Like they just always do that. They find a way to play to their opponent in some aspects, but they always wind up on top for the most part. This year, the way to sum it up for me is what Kansas City has done to become 11-1 is nothing short of remarkable. However, they have had some luck fall their way from other opponents, not themselves. I just want to be clear on that. The luck is not from them. That's talent. The luck is where the opponents managed to beat themselves in several football games.
There's always an aspect of luck to football. I'm not denying. Any team that wins the Super Bowl has to have some luck to win it. You're not going to win it without luck. That's just the way it goes. You have to be prepared to take advantage of the lucky situations that fall your way. I know the Chiefs are flawed. I know they could be beaten first game of the playoffs, but I just feel like we're acting a little too loosely with the number 1 seed in the AFC right now.